They might have hair loss. They might be battling with acne. They might have, like as you said, gingivitis, and and I think the instinct that we have is finding like a short-term fix, like a band-aid fix to those issues, right? And I love that you had that intellect at that time to think of like that root cause, like what must be that root cause solution, right? Like what I do see a lot is, and you definitely know this better than me. It's like sometimes the same root causes, they manifest as different health conditions in your body. Like it could be the same gut issue, but it's like there's different ways it's being projected into your body, whether that's hair loss, whether it's acne or just bloating, right? If you were to go to that like 5 years ago Travis, or maybe 10 year or like 7 years ago Travis, with all these issues, what would you think is like a streamlined roadmap towards having a healthy gut and optimizing everything? If you were able to, if it was like your little brother, if it was like me, and I was like, Travis, help me out, man. How would you help me create like an amazing lifestyle where I am optimizing my gut?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think first of all, I would start with this framework, and the one thing I really love about Eastern medicine, and particularly Chinese medicine, is they look at everything connected. Like when Western medicine has done a great job at compartmentalizing things. They'll be like, oh, you have, your heart is having issues, you have cardiovascular disease. That's only in your heart. That's not happening anywhere else. It's not because you have bacteria in your mouth or bad gut health or poor circulation. It's just kind of in your. And I'm being very specific, but I what I love about Eastern medicine is they take everything, they look at everything connected, and so that's the framework I would start with, is really realize that your body is connected, like everything is connected. It's not like you have acne and it's just because you have a clogged pore, that could be because so many different things. So if one thing is going wrong, like technically, it could be from something completely different that you wouldn't expect. So that's the framework I would go into things with. Um, and then I would really tell myself to focus on the gut. Your gut, a lot of people don't realize this, but your digestive tract is like the average person's digestive tract is 28 feet long. I remember like hearing about my small intestine and being like, okay, it's pretty small, but the reality is your small intestine is massive, and so originally when I started this, I'd look at just my gut, but now I look at the whole 40 feet that is your digestive tract, from your mouth, where your oral microbiome is, to, to the end. That's usually around 40 feet. And these 40 feet are some of the most hidden parts of your body. And the truth is, to really know what's going on in there, you have to be very invasive, and a lot of the tests are very inconclusive. A lot of doctors will admit this, that tests are very inconclusive, and a lot of issues in your gut. If you have bloating, that could be 20 different things. It can be parasites, bacterial overgrowth, fungal overgrowth, heavy metals, like all of these things. Food allergies. All of these things can manifest differently. So I try to break it down as simply as possible and keep an open mind, and remember that I am, not a medical professional. But with that said, the medical community has been wrong about so many different things. We were doing lobotomies around, 80 years ago, 100 years ago. So keep that in mind. But to really look at it and be, okay, what could these issues be? And in my limited experience, I've seen a lot of people with parasites being an issue, a lot of people with bacteria overgrowth, specifically small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, and a lot of people with fungal overgrowth, candida, mold, in their digestive tract. A lot of these things are very hard to test for. And the tests for it are radically inconclusive. And it's so what people do is they get these tests, they get blood work done, and it comes back normal, and you're like, wow, like I'm healthy. But the best test, and I tell people this, and I got this from the certified health nut. I think his name is Troy Casey. I love the guy. But he does this test that I've really adopted. He's like, look in the mirror. How do you feel? Like, do you feel healthy? Do you look healthy? Because at the end of the day, what is the goal? Is the goal to have perfect blood work and perfect stool test, or is the goal of health to look healthy and feel healthy, and be able to play with your kids and, like be happy, like, and actually experience like all of these, neurotransmitters that your gut makes, and that is the goal. It should not be to have perfect blood work. It should not be to have a perfect stool test. It should be you look and feel healthy, and you are capable of doing the things that you want to do, and you're not limited by your body. Um, so to go back to my point of kind of breaking it down, I've seen a lot of these issues like parasites, bacterial overgrowth, fungal overgrowth, mold poisoning, all of these things affect a lot of people. But is that the root cause? And a lot of times it's not, as we know. And it can be low stomach acid, right? It can be low motility in the gut. And that's not even the root cause. The root cause usually is like, stress, eating processed foods. Because if you're very stressed, you have high cortisol, you have low stomach acid, all of a sudden the stomach acid in your stomach is basically it's the security guard, that lets in and kills, a lot of, bacteria and parasites and all these things. So really, I would tell my younger self to look at everything being connected and to really focus on your gut. Your gut is your second brain. I would call it your first brain, but it really is, your second brain. And a lot of these issues that people deal with, it stems from your gut. Because if you have issues in your gut, it's going to manifest in every other way.
It's awesome because I'm looking here and I was trying to like just list out. I'm sorry if I'm looking down. I'm actually just taking notes because I'm learning. So it's like candida, heavy metal, SIBO, fungal, overgrowth, mold, right? These are kind of very commonly occurring issues that can manifest as health conditions, right? So, and I love how you said like, okay, these are the root causes, but then before this, there's even another root cause, which is our processed food and our stress, right? In your opinion, do you think the best course of action is like consistent detoxes, like, or is it just a certain way of living where we are trying to optimize our gut health, if that makes sense?
Exactly. I think it depends where you are in your journey. A lot of people who I see, they are aware of their health because they have these issues, and it might be because the root cause of stomach acid is, what made bacterial overgrowth and parasites and fungal overgrowth go crazy, right? But now if you fix the root cause, you still have these infections that are growing and whatever, and fixing the root cause will help all these things. But a lot of times you have to detox from these things and get rid of it and then fix the root cause or fix it at the same time. And then so your body can live in harmony. I think detoxing should be a way of life. Especially parasites, like we're always exposed to parasites. Parasites have a way of being very opportunistic and taking advantage and of, their host. So I've been an advocate of people detoxing from parasites, but also I think more importantly, the end goal should be to create an environment in your gut where these things do not thrive, whether it's parasites, whether it's, bacteria overgrowth and that being regulated by good bacteria, or if you have gut dysbiosis, getting that in check where you have good, healthy strains of probiotics or bacteria that want to actually help you. And that is very achievable. So to answer your question, I think it almost depends. If you're having these issues, you need to start with a detox. You need to fix the root cause. And so I would recommend people do both.
Love it. Love it. And for these people, right? Like for even like our viewers, they might have some of these problems and they don't know what to attribute it to. Could we go over like specifically for parasites, what are the most commonly occurring symptoms that you have found that are the case and that a person can be like, all right, I have this, this, and this. Most likely, I should get a parasite cleanse.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I tell people do a parasite cleanse every 6 months. We're constantly, we detox our animals, once a year. Every vet will tell you to deworm your animals, but no doctors are tested to deworm themselves. And something I brought up, and it went viral. Some of my most viral concepts is talking about how other countries will detox, but America won't. And traditionally we have always done detoxes, and our ancestors have or detox from parasites, and our ancestors have detoxed from parasites for countless years. The Chinese, in Chinese medicine, they would do a wormwood, tea. I believe the Native Americans would eat pumpkin seed. In Japan, they would consume the neem leaf. Like we have been doing this for centuries because parasites are out there, and if we're, and I think parasites were maybe more of a problem then, but they still are a problem now. So to I'm sorry. Wait. Where was I going? What was the
Yeah,
question? Bring me
we were
back.
talking. I was
Oh,
talking
the
about.
symptoms, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the symptoms. Okay, great. I'm back aligned. So, what I've really narrowed in on is parasites, bacteria overgrowth, and fungal overgrowth. In my opinion, these create majority of gut health issues, and then they eventually get labeled as IBS, which I'll talk about in a second. I think, but the symptoms for parasites often overlap with the symptoms of bacteria overgrowth and fungal overgrowth because both of these are an imbalance in your gut. Parasites, some of the most common ones that are not overlapping from bacteria overgrowth or fungal overgrowth, although they kind of do. Hair loss is one of them. Parasites, specifically roundworm and pinworm, same ones that can live in your animals, they steal iron from you. And iron is essential to hair growth. So if you are taking an iron, obviously hair growth or hair loss can be caused by a variety of different things. But if you're taking an iron supplement, you're doing whatever, and you're still losing hair, it could be because you have parasites. Another one that I'm going to preface this with a lot of things can cause grinding your teeth at night. Parasites are one of them. Parasites are more active at night. They can mess with your central nervous system, causing you to grind your teeth. There are studies on it. It's usually done in children. It's usually done in other countries, but so just take all of that with a grain of salt. Like a lot of people come at me and like these studies were done in Iran, 20 years ago, blah blah blah. A lot of people who I have messaged me saying they did a parasite cleanse, they no longer struggle with grinding their teeth. So I agree. The studies, like unfortunately we don't have a study done this year, but taking a broad spectrum of the population to do this in my personal experience, there are studies that link it to this, and I have had personal testimony from people saying that they no longer grind their teeth. Insomnia is another thing. Parasites are more active at night. Somehow they're more active under a full moon. I've heard that from multiple people. I believe there's studies on that. I haven't personally looked into it, but I've heard that enough times to be like somebody's looking at these studies somewhere. So, but there are studies that saying parasites are much more active at night. So if you're dealing with insomnia, your tummy's rumbling at night, that also could be because of parasites. So, teeth grinding, parasites, hair loss, or sorry, teeth grinding, insomnia, hair loss. Those are a lot of issues that you're commonly seeing with parasites in the intestinal tract. There are parasites that can go into your blood. That's a whole other story. Um, so that's what I see with parasites. I also want to preface this by saying this is not to scare anybody. The first time I saw parasites come out of me, I was terrified. I was scared. I made everybody I know do it. Now I'm like, I did a parasite cleanse pretty recently. I do it every 6 months. But before then, I was like, oh, I probably have parasites in me. It's no big deal. Like, this is how we have, how our ancestors have lived for years. We have parasites in us. We do a detox. They come out. Like it's nothing to be afraid of. Although it might sound terrifying, it's totally normal. Um, some of the more common symptoms with bacteria overgrowth and fungal overgrowth. The differences I see, I'll go through the same process. With bacteria overgrowth, and specifically a bacteria overgrowth in your small intestine, you will have bloating after meals, right? Where fungal overgrowth, you have more consistent bloating. And I'll explain. I know I've heard you talk about the low FODMAP diet, but when you're eating these fermentable carbs, these bacteria can feed on it and they will cause bloating. You will have a lot of bloating if you have bacteria overgrowth or fungal overgrowth. Um, with that said, um, like a common frustration with people with bacteria overgrowth is they eat healthy and they still feel bad. And like you can eat an apple, and you're the bacteria are going to ferment that, and you're going to have bloating. So usually you have bloating after meals, specifically when you eat these fermentable carbs, all of the foods on the low FODMAP diet. Um, so a key difference between that as well as also you might have a vitamin B12 deficiency as well because the bacteria will steal vitamin B12 from you, or just the B vitamins. With fungal overgrowth, what's really common is brain fog. If you have a lot of brain fog, it's usually because you have fungal overgrowth in your small intestine and the fungus is releasing mitotoxins. Mitotoxins can cross the blood brain barrier, making allowing for you to have brain fog. And a lot of people who do a fungal detox from fungal overgrowth will notice that they no longer have brain fog or have much less brain fog. Another common symptom of fungal overgrowth is you have more consistent bloating rather than bloating specifically after meals. That's because the fungus is constantly keeping your gut inflamed, where the bacteria overgrowth create the gas when you after you eat a meal. So, with that said, all of these issues can lead to acne. All of them can lead to bloating. All of them can lead to hair loss from nutrient deficiency. They can mess with your metabolism, causing you to gain weight. All of these things are linked to all three of these things. And usually, I've talked with a lot of doctors about this. If you have one infection, it usually can lead to you can get a co-infection of all three of these things, and it's usually because the root cause is something deeper, which is could be low stomach acidity, low motility in the gut, or just these infections making room for more infections to grow.